So you've got your ball pythons and your Burmese python.
Peaches. It's a
Peaches, that's right.
it's the pearl. It's a pearl berm.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would in the future. I mean, I just have a bedroom now, and it's getting cramped. Like breeding it would be very difficult on a higher scale if I don't have another building or get a building built. But everything's expensive. But because the berm is cool, I like it. I like the pearl. I like the ivories. I like the blizzards and stuff like that. So I mean, I wouldn't mind in the future, years down the road, to try to breed a berm. But again, they have like 40 eggs, and nobody knows who I am. Who's going to buy 40 snakes off me and watch me get stuck? Watch me get stuck with 40 Burmese pythons.
Right, right.
And I know that's my biggest fear of breeding anything, is that nobody knows who I am. And so it's like, I'm just gonna get stuck with everything. And then there's $1,000 a month trying to pay for all these animals.
So let me ask you this. Speaking of that, what do you think you're spending a year with the snakes that you have? But you've added a lot of snakes this year. 2021 has been
Huge.
a
Yeah.
big addition of snakes for you.
And I bought the ARS rack, which was not cheap. So I've spent a lot of money on snakes and equipment. But
Right.
yearly, I mean, I don't know yearly. I would probably say, I don't know, between $4,000 to $6,000 a year on food, maybe.
Then taking
So I
your
mean,
heating costs.
uh, that's another bill. So that's another bill. The water, the extra water, the I mean, the caging is expensive. I mean, you know this. You got some freedom breeder stuff, but it's just kind of like it's just part of it, I guess. But I mean, I probably spend roughly, depending on who I'm feeding, because the bigger boas are on a 2 to 3 week schedule. So, you know, we don't have to really throw that in every week. But I would say weekly, I'd say $100 a week on
Easily.
food easily. And that's without breeding, without hatchlings, without babies. You know what I mean? So it's like all that stuff starts to, because you could be 200-300 bucks a week on food and not sell anything, and you still have to keep feeding them. So it's just like, it's tough. And I see people getting into this where they think they're going to make a fast dollar on ball pythons, and they spend X amount of money to get 80 to 100 low end ball pythons, and, you know, under $500 ball pythons. And I think they're just going to, oh, in 2 years, I'm just going to be a Justin Kabolka making millions. And I see people on Instagram and everything else 6 months in, after they've completely drained their bank trying to feed 100 ball pythons, you know, they're probably spending $300 a month or a week, and then they sell everything. I mean, you can breed your own rats, but
It's not worth it.
but that's the thing. People are like, oh, it doesn't cost that much to breed a rat. Go on Freedom Breeder or ARS. You can build your own rack system, but building your own rack system right now would probably cost you around $800 a rack. But if you want to get professional grade, they're $2,000 to $3,000. You got to feed them. You got to water them every day. You got to clean them every single week. That's a lot of time.
And you got to smell them.
And yeah,
They
yeah,
stink.
yep.
That is one of the big reasons I don't breed them.
And then they die. And then what happens if you have a water leak or a flood, and all your grow ups or all your females or all your babies or whatever in those tubs, they all die? What if you lose a colony? Then you got to start over, and then you've lost all that money. Then you got to go buy snake or buy frozen. So I don't know. I just don't really want to deal with, and I don't have a place to do it. I don't have an extra shed. And I'm not breeding rats in my house. Like, that's no, not happening.
So
There's really no cheap way about it.
Right. Do you have a snake in your collection that's like your favorite, like gets more attention than anybody else? We all have the snake in our moment that's like, this is my favorite snake right here. My Hog Island boa is like, but then I'll have my beast.
Yeah.
Out.
I'm sure you could guess who.
Oh, I'm gonna have to say it's probably Pop Tart.
Definitely.
Yeah.
definitely. Because she gets the big cage, she gets the bedding, she gets the big log in there. But yeah, it's definitely Pop-Tart. Yeah, for sure.
Was it Mountain Dew that you went through that you had the health issues with?
Yeah.
How
Yep.
what happened exactly, and what did you do? Because now she's healthy, right?
Yeah. Yep. No issues right now. So I think it was back in April-ish, sometime in the springtime. Uh, she was still on quail or chicks because anacondas suck. They're worse than ball pythons. So if you think ball pythons are bad, wait till you get a baby anaconda. So she's still on birds, and she just randomly started throwing them up, regurgitating. So I don't know if you've had snakes that regurgitated, but it is a hassle because they can die. It takes a lot out of their system to regurgitate it, and then their stomach acids get all messed up. So they have to regenerate the stomach acid. So a lot of people don't know that it takes 2, 3, or 4 weeks for their stomach acids to get back to normal. So they say regurge, keep them hydrated, and don't feed them for a minimum 2, but try to go for 3 weeks. So some people are like, oh, I regurgitated, I'll just feed them again. Then they regurgitate and they feed them again, and then they die because they can die pretty easily from that. So I didn't feed her for like 3 weeks, and then I tried again, and then she puked it back up. And then when she puked it back up, her skin was like super shrivelly, really stretchy on her bones. Like you could like peel like her skin off of her bones, and she looked like she was dead. Like there was a few times I opened up the tub and I pick her up and she was like super limp and just like a noodle, you know what I mean? And I thought she was dead. And so she'd like wiggle her tail a little bit. I'm like, she's alive. So I'd soak her in water and then she'd be okay. It's like her skin would come back a little bit. But the second she'd come out on dry land, like 5 minutes later, she'd be all dried up and she looked horrible. So I went to my buddy, to John Chosmers, and I was like, hey, my anaconda is about to die. Like, what do you have tips on? So he gave me some miracle stuff. I forget what it's called.
I remember when you
no
posted it. I have heard of it before,
I did.
but it's like a wonder. It's like a wonder recipe
Yeah,
for
so
snakes.
yeah, a lot of people give that to snakes that are super dehydrated, almost dying, or they come off of breeding and they're not re-eating. So they give them this stuff, and then it kicks their system back on. So I gave them that, and it was working a little bit. And then I went to a vet and I got some weird medicine that I had to give an oral shot, liquid, to her twice a day for 2 weeks. So I was fighting with her, sticking this like syringe down her mouth and giving her this liquid. And then I was still giving her a bunch of that miracle stuff. And I guess both of them combined, like after 2 weeks, she ate. So the vet said that it was air pockets in her stomach. It wasn't in her intestines, but it was in her stomach. I don't know how they found that out. But after all that medicine, I fed her. She kept it down, and no issues since then. So that was definitely a roller coaster, because it's like, not only was the snake dying, if you've ever had to give medicine to a snake through its mouth on a syringe or an injector, it's not easy.
It's not a fun thing to do either. I had my male black pastel ended up with a respiratory infection.
Oh,
So we had to give it antibiotics. My wife is a nurse, so I'm having to hold the snake while she is injecting a needle into its scales.
Oh, that's horrible.
We did this for 14 days, I think it was. That's and crazy. I tell you what, every time I got to the point where if I thought that, I just said, if he latches onto me, oh well, But we did it 14 days religiously. Every day she was sticking a needle in him, and he took it like a champ. And
that's crazy.
I thought he was going to die. I thought I was going to lose him. And he made this miraculous turnaround. And it was he was my miracle snake. He really was.
Yeah, it's crazy how some of these snakes are like, they show no signs and then they're dead. And then they absolutely look like they should be dead. and then they bounce back. So it's just super weird.
They're resilient. They really don't have a way of telling us that they're sick.
No,
you know?
And most of the time it's too late anyways.
Right. When we lost our Tegu was doing, I mean, fine. And she crawled up on her bed and she passed away. So that was, I mean, no warning, nothing. She just passed away. Well, I mean, obviously with the fire and everything, she went through a very traumatic event. And there's probably some internal issues that, once again, they are very resilient animals. So they're not, saying, hey, by the way, my insides hurt. I don't feel good. Help me out,
Yeah, they don't show emotions like another animal, like the cat or dog might. You could see signs on how they act and stuff like that. But as snakes, it's just they're good, then they're dead.
Right. Or they show the signs and it's too late.
Yeah.
So do you do anything with education on like reptiles? Like, for instance, for me, I actually have this little exhibit that I can take into the schools around here.
Nice.
And I've got a daycare center that's been calling me up. I got our fair that's been calling me up for the kids fair.
That's awesome.
And just set up a snake booth. It's funny because when you're that guy, right? When you're that guy that's got reptiles in town. I live in a very small town or in a very small county. So when somebody says, hey, do you know anybody who does a reptile exhibit? They go, oh, hey, I know somebody. And then they're calling me. So I got these banners made. It's kind of cool. We go out, we set up, we take a couple tortoises with us. We take, maybe a gecko and some snakes, and the kids get to come by. And it's a really neat experience because you show a kid a snake and they get to actually hold that snake. It changes them. There is something that will change their lives. So my question is that, do you get to do anything like that? Do you get to like hold exhibits or get to go to like, into schools and say, hey, check them out,
I mean, I don't do that. I wouldn't mind to do that, especially with Pop-Tart and maybe some other animals. But I don't know how that works in Ohio with licensing or insurance, because I'm sure if one bites a kid, their parents would probably sue you and you never would own another snake again. I don't know how that works, but somebody was telling me, like, I've seen people, or you should do birthday parties, like reptile birthday parties and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, that would be not bad. But I don't know how the snakes react through like boxing them up, driving them, being poked all day, bringing them back. I don't know if that's like super stressful. But on the bigger snakes, like the berms and anacondas, I have to look more into this. Like, I would love to have Pop-Tart be an ambassador for big snakes, because she doesn't bite, she doesn't hiss, she doesn't musk, she doesn't pee on me. Like, she does everything opposite of what everybody else's anacondas that I see do. And I'm like, this would be a perfect animal for people that are scared of snakes or big snakes or don't know about them, to hold one of them. So I need a permit in Ohio just to have her, well, anything over 12 feet. Once I hit 12 feet, I have to apply for a permit. And then I think I have to apply for another permit if it's over 12 feet for public display. I think I have to relook into that, but it's a little confusing on how they word stuff. And I think they do that on purpose. But on the smaller stuff, I could do that. But I mean, I really don't know how to go about that. And I mean, I wouldn't mind doing that. But I guess that would just be something I'd have to look into a little bit more. So
you bring up a good point, because, as a matter of fact, like I said, the county where I live has asked me if I will bring my larger snakes in.
Gotcha.
I know without a doubt, right, that my snakes are docile. I mean, they've never showed any sort of aggression to me. They've never showed any aggression towards anybody else. So it's assumed, and I've got to think that many people like myself, it's assumed that when we go into a facility where there's children or there's, people for that matter, that our snake is not going to become defensive for any reason. Hope not. Right. So, I mean, it makes me wonder, should I be checking into my local county laws or my state laws because of course we have USARK, and the last thing in the world I want to do is USARK is there to help us. It's there to, inform us of the laws that are, trying to come into play. So the last thing in the world I want to do is be one of those people that USARK is, trying to fight a law for. You know what I mean? So
yeah, because I mean, we don't know, like, if a kid, like, because we know how to hold snakes and react with snakes, and they know, the generalization of how we handle them. The kids poking and grabbing, and
you're
one
always gonna
squeeze
have
of the
that
tail,
one kid.
and then what if it just wraps around and freaks the snake out, and it bites one person, and one person's parents take it to the court, take it to anything. Then that's my biggest thing, because I see what happens on the internet, and I'm like, I don't want to be that one person that ruins the state of Ohio for people. But I mean, I think, but if you have a permit and then you have all this other stuff, I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. And insurance isn't that expensive at all to have for like $100,000 liability or whatever. It's like $5 a month on a business. You know what I mean? And if that's your business, it's not anything ridiculous, but I just wouldn't want to have one incident and everybody hates me.
Well, I've had that one kid. There's always rules. Whenever I set up anywhere, it's don't touch the head. I will bring the back of the snake to you. You can touch it. And every once in a while, actually it's more than every once in a while, I'll let the parents and the kids hold the snake together, because Max is a big boy. He's over 6 feet long. So three people can hold Max. And it's a pretty impressive picture to show your friends when you leave an exhibit like that.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
One thing that I'm usually at the head, or I let the adult be at the head, and I trust Max, but there's always that one kid that wants to grab the head after you told him 10 times don't touch his head, and they're like they're antagonizing, and then most of the times you're looking at the parents going, Timmy here needs to be taken away, but
I guess you could print off, like, I don't know what they're called, waivers, where the parents sign if it bites any kid, like, I'm not responsible for this.
Right.
I guess that could work as well, but I think there might be some legal stuff around that. But yeah, I mean, there's always gonna be that one kid that will do something, and unfortunately, with my luck, good old Pop-Tart would be bite somebody.
Live up to the internet's reputation.
Exactly. And then if they're filming it, I'm on TikTok for the rest of my life.
Exactly. So let's talk about USARK for a minute. I'm a member. I know that you're a member. I donate because, of course, obviously I love my animals. We don't have the regulations here in California.
See, I'm so shocked by that, because California is known to be like super strict, can't do anything fun, and all this stuff. And I'm just shocked that you can own retics or anything with what you're saying with no permits. Blows my mind. It blows my mind.
We don't have to have permits here, but there's also the responsibility of the keepers. And I break rules. I tend to be a rule breaker, but I don't know that I'm doing it until later, and I start to maybe take a look at, for instance, this is a story, right? Like, I go into Lowe's and I see people with their dogs in Lowe's, and I think to myself, well, if you can take your dog into Lowe's, why can't I bring my snake into Lowe's? So the very next day, I show up with Max around my neck, and it's creating all sorts of scenery, but it's not negative. It's more like curiosity. People are like, oh my God, can I see it? Can I touch it? You got the little kids going, I've got one at home. And the parents going, no, you don't, but they, it creates all this almost positive contact with people, where I tend to forget about if something bad were to happen, right? Where that could potentially bring up rules and regulations in California that we don't have.
It could.
So and I hear about it on the internet. Matter of fact, I've been not talked to, but commented about that, we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be bringing our snakes into public. And there's been a lot of talk and
Yeah, I
controversy
see
about
that.
bringing
I see that
our
all the time.
right, bringing our
And
snakes.
I see, I mean, there's a bunch of Karens, whatever you want to call them, all over the internet. And I mean, you were just talking about it and you know all about it. Like, you bring a snake out to Home Depot, or take a snake to PetSmart, or you take a snake to the grocery store or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, like, you're giving a bad representation against all reptile people. You're gonna stress the snake out and all this stuff. And it's just like, do what you need to do. Like, why, who cares? If somebody brings enjoyment of taking their snake out to the public or to the park, and they can get a good interaction with people, if it gets stressed out and doesn't eat anymore, like, I wouldn't bring a ball python out in public just because it wouldn't eat after that. Like, it probably would go into some sort of a shock and not eat. But I mean, I don't think people are going to call US ARC or call the state officials and be like, people are bringing snakes around. Like, it's just not something that happens. But there's always those people on the internet that post a good picture, had a lot of good interactions with people who weren't snake people. They saw my snake and maybe they changed their minds on snakes. You got all these nasty comments all the way down. And it's just like, just because you don't do something doesn't mean they can't do it. But it's the internet and people want to just bash people and be rude for no reason.
Right. And I've had more positive interactions with people. I mean, it's total strangers that I'm walking back to my car. Well, number one, first of all, like most people's dogs, right? If people have an aggressive and vicious dog, hopefully they're not taking it out. So
you would hope not.
I'm pretty, comfortable with the snakes that I do take out. I don't take out snakes that I'm unsure of around other people.
Exactly. Right.
Max and Coconut are my two most socialized snakes that I have. So I have no problem taking them out. I don't fear in any way, shape, or form that these snakes are going to pose a threat if somebody else wants to hold them.